things. Learning should be a lifelong process. If all the learning that you do occurs while you're in school, then you are going to go through life severely undereducated. In fact, there's a difference between going to school and being truly educated. There are a whole lot of people who have a whole lot of formal education, who went to school for a really long time, who were never really educated, who really don't know a whole lot about anything that actually matters. Right now, the best university in the history of the world is called Google.com. When I compare that to what I learned back when I was in college and when I learned getting my PhD, I realized that actually the internet provides more information, more relevant, timely information that you're going to need on a day-to-day basis than almost anything else that has ever existed throughout human history. In fact, Google, I will put that up against any university in the history of the world. So information is no longer tough to obtain. It no longer costs money. A white man can take a lot of things away from you, but a white man can never stop you from reading a book or looking up information. There's no law against that. There's nothing that will ever stop you from that. So even as we contextualize and try to understand what racism has done to us, what racism continues to do to us, what racism has done to our people, what it does to our people, what it will do to our people, we have to understand what we do as a people is what's going to determine our outcome. You cannot base your future on waiting for white people to stop being racist. That's probably not going to happen anytime soon. But if you are stronger than your oppression, then you will eventually overcome it. And one of the enemies to progress for black people, and I have to really talk about this, and this is important because this links to obtaining the financial Juneteenth, is this anti-intellectualism that we have. Sometimes you have situations where people are literally ignorant enough to think that being well educated means acting white. Now, this isn't everybody, this is a minority, but there are people who think that way. And even if they don't think it's acting white, maybe they think that that's reserved for white people. They don't see themselves in that role. Maybe when you talk about just the idea of fanatically hustling for the things that you want, some people see that as something that other people do. They think that if you're in college and it's a Saturday night and everybody else is going to the Lil Wayne concert, that something's wrong with you if you go to the library instead. Well, my argument is that we have to understand that when you talk about the captains of industry, when you talk about the people who are really doing well, not just financially, but all the way around the block, most of those people are people who are fanatical about educating themselves and obtaining the skills necessary to achieve whatever goal that they had in front of them. So, for example, Mark Zuckerberg, who created Facebook, that little app that probably controls half of your life. When Mark Zuckerberg was in college, he was fanatically in front of the computer trying to design the first social media platform, or the first big social media platform. So one of the things that I truly believe is that we have Mark Zuckerbergs in the black community. We have people in the black community that can go on and do what Steve Jobs did, or any of these other people that have done great things. And one of the things that we have to commit ourselves to fighting against, and this is going back to anti-intellectualism, is we have to fight against the possibility that the brains of our children are going to be hijacked by people or by entities or by ideas that are going to be counterproductive to them achieving the greatness that is in store for them. And so all of this is connected to obtaining your financial Juneteenth, because when you let somebody steal your potential and let somebody steal your dream and steal your future, then effectively you are allowing them to trade greatness, happiness, and prosperity for a life of misery, stress, frustration, and racial inequality. So let's not let anybody steal that away from us. That means that we have to protect our children, not just protect their bodies, but we also have to protect their minds and their spirits and their souls from the trauma that might await them in a fundamentally racist society. Now, when you talk about education, here's one thing that I believe, this is a concept I want you to write down, I want you to carry this with you. It's what I call extrication. Now, I'm not the first person to come up with the word extricate, but if you think about extrication, let's break it down. You've got extra. Extra means what? In addition to, right? And then you think extricate. Extricate means to break yourself away from something, to escape from something. So extrication means that part of education, part of getting a true, meaningful education in this world comes down to the ability to not just get what you can from the formal educational system, but to extricate yourself from the constraints of that education. Because remember, sometimes in many of our public schools, and remember, Malcolm always told us that it's a huge danger to allow your oppressor to educate your children. Because for many of us, education becomes an indoctrination. It becomes in alignment with a specific way of thinking that might end up limiting you more than it actually opens you up to possibilities. One example might be the fact that one of my friends is actually pointing out, he said, you know, when I went to a state university for undergrad, they taught us how to get a job and how to go work for people. But when I went to Harvard for grad school, they didn't teach us how to go work for people. They taught us how to create companies where we hire other people. There are situations where you might be trained to be the boss, and some situations where you're trained to be in a position where a boss is going to tell you what to do. Everybody can't be a boss. And so when you talk about extrication, my argument is that when you are educating your child, you are the first teacher of that child. You are the most important teacher of that child. The mother is the most important person in a child's life initially, even ahead of the father. Father's number two. The reason the mother is number one is because the mother has a link with that child while the child's in the womb, before the child even comes out of the mother's body. There is a deeply embedded connection where one of them would willingly die for the other. And because that connection is so deep, the mother gets to decide the size and the trajectory of that child's whole universe. If the mother tells the child that she's ugly, the child will believe that she's ugly. If the mother tells the child that she's stupid, then the child will believe that she is stupid. The father is number two on that list. So on the flip side of that, if you tell your child great things, that they can be the next Barack Obama or that they can go on and conquer the world, then they're going to carry that with them through their lives, even if it's not true. Even if they're not the smartest kid in the class, it's better to walk in thinking that you're the smartest sometimes